Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Welcome to another edition of Papa. About to drink water with the cap on. Welcome to another edition of Papa's Monday Elevation. Last Monday, the video's now. The video for last week is available on my YouTube channel, Somedy Vision. Last week, we got into the aspects of the communication, getting into a lot of things with communication, understanding your convincing yourself versus the aspects of convincing yourself, the convincing versus the construction of your reality. The convincing yourself to why you're staying where you're at and why the reason you can't get where you need to get to and stuff's not working the way you want it to work and things of that nature, versus the actual constructing or learning these tools and these keys, these lesser keys. Which led me to this week, we're going to get into spiritual fetish, the spiritual fetish, or the impression for delusion versus the impact for inspiration. The impression for delusion, to continue in staying in that convincing yourself of a delusional state, versus coming into the actual space with yourself of, hold up, wait, this is impacting me, learning how this is impacting me, and learning these aspects of these lesser keys. So I have a question for you while I'm going to pose my question like I usually, we're going to pose that question. Oh, shit. Oops. Come back. Don't do that. We got to add my sticker. Y'all give me a second while I add my sticker. Put my sticker in there. Y'all give me that second while I seek my sticker real quick. Put my sticker in there. I love putting my little logo. There it is. There's my sticker. Let me make my sticker smaller. Let me move it down here. Sticker down there. Apply my sticker. Let's do our usual aspects of invites. Get some people invited into the roomie. If you don't get an invite, you got to understand I was just going down the line. Hitting up the first aspects going into the space. So don't feel any type of way. If you feel some type of way, ask yourself the question, why am I feeling that type of way? Why am I feeling this type of way about that aspect? But yeah, today we're going to be getting into a little bit of that space of spiritual fetishism. The spiritual fetish. Today we're going to be getting into that spiritual fetish. What's up, fam? We're going to get more deep into last week. Once again, the video for last week is on my YouTube channel, Somedy Vision. The difference between convincing and constructing. This is going to be that nice little series we're going to start off in the year before we get deeper. Like, if anybody's familiar with how I do processes, how I knock out these processes, what we're going through in these lives is leading up to the next classes that I'm going to be releasing. So stay on the lookout for the next classes from the G.O.D Academy. Those are coming up. In the G.O.D Academy, the next classes that we're going to be doing, the next healing, the launching of the new healing retreat, and a whole bunch of other stuff. If you look at my story, you see I'm about to launch another aspect to the line of G.O.D Alchemy, the clothing line, the aspect of the I am self, I am law, call your power back to you imprint. But I wanted to get into today of the aspects of spiritual fetish, or the impressions to sustain the delusion, versus you actually finding the aspects of impact. That why, remember, I'm always talking about the difference between the what to think versus how to think. The how to think is the aspects of that why. That goes into the aspects of that impact. The impact. This is impacting me to do what? This is impacting me to really sit down, and how is this impacting me? What do I need to learn? What's the next step for me to learn? Where am I at inside of my space? Where am I in my studies? Where am I inside of my space? What am I building out? Why am I building out? Things of that nature. The aspects of constructing versus what to think. And think about it like this. Let's give a nice example. Think about it like this. Everything from the front of the Ebony cover with Jonathan Majors. And as soon as I saw that cover, I was like, that's anime influence. I couldn't remember the name of it. I couldn't remember the name of the character that they used to put that together. Or the aspects of looking at a cover with Rihanna on the front, and in the background, it's an interview about her, and ASAP's holding a baby and she's holding his hand. In the aspect, she's being reborn in that type of space. There's so many things that when we come into this space, when we're working with ourselves, and it shows you, as always, getting deeper into the trigger. The trigger is letting you know where you have not been present. The trigger in the lesser aspects of yourself, in that lesser aspects of that healing, the healing journey, going through your healing work, going through your healing journey, is letting you know exactly what is next that you need to actually work on, what you need to heal. As you're going through that transitionary process, as I'm talking about that path of that heart space, that's the transitionary space. That's the space of transition, or transmuting what you've learned in those lesser keys of self, those lesser aspects of yourself, as you're evolving and you're now starting to build out as you're now starting to build out your new houses, build out your new space that's going to be in alignment with your higher self. A lot of times we come into these spaces with ourselves, and it's a fetish. It's the fetish. And if you don't know what a fetish is not something simply in the aspects of a sexual term. A fetish can be anything that you're trying to objectify, and you're putting more power into it than you're putting into yourself. You're putting more power into everything outside of you than you're putting power into yourself. I've talked about this before when we go into the aspects of every single fucking month. Like, for example, when I was looking up the things for G.O.D Alchemy, putting the things together for the new clothing, and before I launched the new clothing, I was looking at I literally typed in on Google just to get some pictures. And I typed in satanic hand gestures. Every one of those hand gestures are just mudras. If you don't understand the aspects of your meditation going into your mudras, and every time you've seen this, oh my God, they throwing up the shit for some satanic aspect. All of these aspects, all of these hand gestures are aspects that you use inside of your meditation to cycle your power, to cycle your energy, focus, put yourself in a certain focus. But if you're not really doing the internal work, if you're not really doing the work, you're just simply, I went on Google, I went on Facebook, I went on Instagram, I went on TikTok, I went on Google, I went and looked at a lecture, or I looked at something and it said this, this, and this, so I'm going to use that as this, this, and this, then you're not really applying anything to it. Mm-hmm. So we got to look at the aspects of that space as simple as somebody doing this. If I see this, if I see somebody doing this, my mind automatically, because I've already created that new space, this is the key. I've already created that new space, so I know what this means. I know this, seeing this all the time. Oh my God, they covering up their left eye. That's the Illuminati and all that bullshit. I know how to literally feed from that energy. I know how to literally, because I've gone through that process of my lesser keys, going through my shadow work, going through my soul retrieval, going through my healing process, going through therapy for myself, to not only just to learn it, to be like, ooh, this is something new I'm gonna do, but literally going through the process so I can understand how to contrast. I talked about it last week. I talked about it last Monday. When you're going through this process, when you're stuck inside of that constant state of trying to convince yourself, you're automatically stuck inside of this space that is based on trying to convince yourself. Similar to Dawson just said, with the aspects of this fetish would be deity worship. Or the same way we do deity worship, the same way you try to worship your ancestors. These are aspects of yourself. That's why when your ancestor passes, that break something. Let me give a thought process. I was having a conversation with some family members, some loved ones, and I was like, think about the process of dealing with your ancestors. Your ancestor, before they became an ancestor, they became an elder. They became a sense of becoming an elder. That means in simple terms of being an elder, it's not about age, it's about what they've mastered. That lessons that they've mastered, the life that they created. You have some I got some elders that I have that for a certain point in time, the world and the life that they created at a point in time when I was still going through triggers and I was in that family, disassociating myself from family. The dead lay with the dead. My family, they all in religion, and they ain't trying to do none of this type of shit like I'm trying to do. So it limited me in actually understanding the process, and actually understanding that process, what they put into their process, why they put that into their process, their emotional intelligence in aspects of their process, the things that they were avoiding in that process. So using it like, so if I have an alcoholic uncle, and now I'm coming in aspects of pouring libations, there's going to be a block there for me to actually use this, because I have a fear of I'm using surface level aspects in the psychology aspect, like alcoholism is a disease and this and that nature. That's going to be my block. So I'm going to have a fear of pouring libations. I'm going to have a fear of drinking. I'm going to have a fear of these aspects. So I'm stuck inside. Now, when I do it, it's going to be based on a fetish. Or if you have so that same addictive complex, that same addictive key that they are showing you, you have. It's in your blood. It's in your blood. It's in your bloodline. It's in your DNA. But until you understand it, you're always gonna stay in that sense of that fetish. I don't drink all the time, but I do drink with my ancestors. So you're gonna keep trying to make excuses. As I said last week, every time that you're going into these spaces, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna move into that space and you're constantly trying to convince yourself of this reason why you're there, this reason why you don't do this, the reason why you don't do that, the reason why you avoided family for so long, the reason why it's hard for me to heal. Use an example. It's hard for me to heal when nobody want to talk about the shit that happened. They're giving you your answer. They're giving you your answer. Because inside of that space, those lesser keys of your mother not wanting to tell you the real story about your pops, or your uncle or something going down in that family in the bloodline, they're giving you your answer. They're giving you the truth. You're looking for a certain answer to fit your position, to fit your purpose, to fit that impression, so you can keep that same impression going and keep activating in that same way. But in the same way you getting upset, the same way you upset that your moms and your uncles and aunts and family members, they heavy in the church and they go to church every Sunday, you're only going to emulate that in the same way that you worship deities. So now every time you see a deity, instead of you actually going through the actual vetting process because you don't know how to communicate, think about that aspect. Use an example. One of the things I talk about when I work with clients. If I don't understand the simple basics of my avoidant attachment or the way that I communicate, if I don't understand that, how I communicate versus an avoidant attachment style, I have an avoidant attachment style, I have a disorganized attachment style, I have a secure attachment style, I have an anxious attachment style, and that's the way that I communicate whenever I'm triggered. If I don't understand the basic, if I don't comprehend how I communicate, then I don't understand how when information is brought to me. 9 times out of 10, if you have for example, 9 times out of 10, if you have a disorganized communication style, things are going to come to you in a disorganized manner, or in a manner that's not based in a certain type of order. That means you might have 3 or 4 fucking dreams. You might have a series of fucking dreams, and none of your dreams seem to make sense because you don't know how your subconscious communicates. You don't know how to even listen to your subconscious instead of the aspects. But then you'll come into a space, and this is a lot of times when you come into that space. A lot of times you'll come into that space, and then you're gonna go from point 0 all the way to point fucking 10 and trying to get some information. And then you're going to, okay, cool. Well, because of this, and this, and I read this, and they were talking about this and the aspect that we chaos beings. So think about how you attach to things. So now you're going to create this fetish in your mind of how you're attaching to things, how you're going to do your work. But think about it like, then we get deeper. You don't understand your attachment style. You feel secure when everything's disorganized. You feel secure whenever you get anxious, and then you act on the anxiousness. You act on the, okay, cool. I went into the metaphysical store. I walked into the metaphysical store and I saw some tarot cards, and I walked over there and I didn't know what cards to get. So I ended up getting 3 or 4 different decks. So now you just spent $50, $60, $100 on a bunch of decks, but all you needed was one. All you needed was one deck to start out with. All you needed was a simple deck to start out with. If you're really going to study it. All you needed was one simple deck. All you needed was one simple deck. That's all you needed. You wanted to get into meditation, and you felt until you got the lotus tapestry, or this glorious tapestry that you can put on your wall, and you get a nice little statue sitting around you, and the candles and all of this stuff around you, you couldn't create your space of meditation. But all you needed was, in simple and aspect, we look at aspects of conjuring. All you needed was one little white candle. All you needed was one white candle, couple of incense to incense. You needed the candle. You don't understand what the candle's for. The candle is for you to focus on the flame. The candle, simple candle, focus on the flame. Incense, the smell, that aroma, that smell from that incense, that scent from that incense, whether you went to the Arab store, or you went to the Arab store, metaphysical store, and you went in there. Use an example. You can go into the Arab store and you saw black ice incense. And if anybody's from the aspects of the 80s, early 80s, 70s, 90s in that aspect, we remember that little black. You remember in your uncle car, in your aunt car, they had that little Christmas tree hanging there that was black ice. You were led to go get that black. But you were like, man, I ain't using that damn black ice. My uncle used to use that. There's a reason that you're getting that information. You're not used to, because you're used to it being disorganized, or you're used to it trying to come in this vainglorious. You think it should come in this big ass way. Come in this big ass way, that you didn't simply go get that incense, get that pack of incense, got that one candle, got some sage or whatever, cleared your space, cleared a space for yourself, and then you said, okay, cool, I got my incense, I got my candle, my mind is too, and then as you're sitting there going through that anxiousness and feeling through the emotion, it's one of the things that I teach, feeling through that emotion, and allowing yourself to come out on the other side. All right, cool. My energy right now is too fucking high. I'm too fucking anxious. My anxiety's kicking my ass right now. I'm going to go for a walk or whatever. And then I'm going to meditate later on tonight. I'm going to meditate first thing when I wake up. I'm going to light this candle. I'm going to gaze into this candle. I'm going to gaze into my nice little white candle. Once my thoughts have started to still themselves, once all this information that's bombarding me starts to still itself, I'll light my incense. The incense is going to symbolize this smell or this aroma is this black ice. And you look at the front of the pack of black ice incense, and it says for energy. It says it on the front of the pack. Use the basics. Use the aspects of the basics. All right, cool. This is my energy right now, is my emotion. Let me bring my emotions to a still point. Let me just sit here in this space. Do I understand how to breathe? All right, cool. That's my next lesson. Let me take in a couple of deep breaths. Maybe I don't know how to breathe. After I'm done with the meditation, I sit there for 15, 20 minutes. Here's one of those keys. If you can't sit for longer than 5 minutes, it's pointing to you. It's nothing bad. It's letting you know that that's where you're going to need that assistance at. That's where you need that assistance at. So now when you're going throughout your space and throughout your day, similar to the same way, if you go on Amazon right now, go on Google, go on Amazon, and Amazon. If I went on my phone yesterday because I'm building out my vision board, and I was looking up houses. I was looking up cribs, looking up houses. As soon as I did that, I slid over to Facebook, and just like that, I had like different aspects and different realtors in my area and all that types of shit for fucking houses. That was my sign. Like, oh, okay, cool. That means I need to be more. I'm in the space that I need to be in because I'm creating that space. You did it just that fast. But when we're used to this the fetish aspect and the arousal, oh my God, I got the sign, that means I need to be doing this right now. But you know damn well you didn't do the base work to that space. You haven't done the base level work. You ain't written out shit. You haven't written out anything. You looked at houses all day on the internet, on the interwebs. You looked at houses all day on the internet, but the houses that you looked at, you didn't write down the price. You didn't write down the price. You didn't write down the area. You didn't, when you saw the thing that it said, okay, let's check your credit score, you got scared whenever you got a little, man, I know my credit ain't the best. You're getting your answers. If I know my credit's not the best, and I'm talking about making an investment into a house, the first thing that I need to look at is getting my credit in order. If I'm sitting there and I don't know how to meditate, the first thing I need to get in order is creating that space. As opposed to these are examples of impact for inspiration. The impacts of inspiration versus you stuck in the space of the impression to further sustain your delusion. that staying in that delusional state, staying in that survival state. I'm not good enough. You got to, on both ends. I'm always talking about this. The yes is just as strong as the no. The same energy that goes into that yes is the same energy that goes into the no. Every single time. The same energy that goes into the yes is just as absolute as a no. So if I get a no, or if I get something that makes me feel some type of way, same energy is going into the when I'm looking for the yes. I was looking for this. I was looking for that. I was looking for somebody to give me this answer or somebody to give me this answer. Then you get mad when you listen. Then you get mad, upset, when you find somebody and you trying to have a conversation with somebody and you can tell the difference. You don't understand how you communicate. So someone can sit here and give you information that it sounds, but how? You just keep asking, but how? But how? But how? But how? The person says, keep going deeper within and keep doing this and this. And you got to keep going deeper within and you got to trust yourself. But they're not giving you they're giving you truth. They're giving you truth, but it's only based on to where you're at. Remember, I'm always going to say that. You're only going to get based on the level of where you're at. That means if you're always looking for answers from a surface level to make you feel good about, and you're trying to attach it to something, because this is how we work in the aspects of trauma, 9 times out of 10 with most of your traumas, you're trying to attach shit to shit that you've already done. You tried to meditate for 3 weeks straight. So you're trying to attach things to your effort. Effort don't count. Effort doesn't count. If you went to your job right now, if you went to your job right now and you were like, they said they gave you an assignment and they gave you the due date, and then you came to the due date and you said, well, I need more time. And all they're saying is, all they're going to ask you is, why do you need more time? Man, why you got to ask me all these damn questions? Why I need more time? Because I was busy. I had to do this and this and this and this, and I was doing this and I'm going through this. They didn't ask anything about any of that. They don't give a fuck about none of that. They rightfully so they don't give a fuck about none of that. They gave you an assignment on last Monday. You had a meeting about it that Thursday about where everybody was at. You had a chance to ask questions. For site information, things of that nature. You came into the next week still trying to putting it off because you're not doing it. And then you naturally created inside of your space everything to keep you in a state of distraction. So you can't get to where you need to get to. That's not on them that you don't have the discipline. It's not on them that you're not in aspects of your discipline. It's not on them that you hate your job. Because something in you led you to go trying to go get that job. Until you sit with, yo, I was led to do this job on the surface level, the impressionable level, I needed to pay bills. But why do I feel the aspects? That's the thought. That's the context. That's the thought. What are your feelings that you created that physical reality, that illusion, based on your thought? That's your intention, based on your emotional intelligence, where your emotions were at, how you define how you need to make money. If you don't understand, if you don't get to that aspect, this is something that I had to learn. Until I understood those aspects and sat with those and went through those processes, every time that something new came up that impressed me, oh my God, that motherfucker got his own clothing line. Oh my God, that motherfucker, he cutting hair. Oh my God, they're doing this. Oh my God, they're doing this. Oh my God, they're speaking to a bunch of people and everybody's listening to them. Oh my God, they're doing this. I feel the impression of the delusion. Man, I don't feel like I'm good. I can't do that. I can't sit in front of 16, 17, 20, 30, 100. I can't sit in front of a bunch of people and talk to them. What would I talk to them about? What would I break down? But sit inside of that space. That's why you were led there. Listen to them. Go to the event. Go to the event. Listen to the live. Listen to their live. Listen to the lecture. Listen to what they're actually saying. Listen to what they're actually saying. Was it 45? Did you learn anything? Did you truly learn anything that you wrote down? Or was it 45 minutes of feeding off of your fear? Was it 45 minutes, an hour, and some change about feeding off of your fear? Was it similar to, like, if you ever been to those real estate courses when they're talking about how you can flip houses and it's a free event, and then you go it's like usually at a hotel, you go to the hotel and then you sit in there and they're telling you everything that they said during the commercials, in the trailers, those commercials, those ads that they were running, they just extended all of that. And then by the end of it, they're like, okay, cool. We're having another class, the first 3-day class, and it costs this much. By the time you get to the end of the class, now you sitting there like, man, fuck that shit, man. Nah. See, that it sounds like a scam, man. They trying to get me in there and get more money out of me. I knew this shit was too good to be true. That's your thought process. That's your thought process. You created that space. You created that space in definition to you. You created that space in definition to you. You just learned, but what did you learn about yourself? The only way you're willing to invest in this shit is usually when it's free. The only way you're used to is that aspect of it being free. I ain't got the money to put it into there, but you got money to put in some other shit. You have to think about those types of things as you're trying to make shits in this dynamic of fetishing. This fetishization, you stuck in this aspect of fetish. You want to remain the same person that you are until you have convinced yourself that you can go forward. I had to look at a lot of the shit that I was doing earlier on in my process was I was stuck inside of a space trying to convince myself that when this happens, or if I get this chance, or if this happens, then I'm going to show up and I'm going to do this. Problem with that was I never did it. When I did get into that space, I was stuck on my effort. I tried to be the best man that you needed in your life. I tried to be the best son. I tried to be, because you're still living. You're still living and you're still active in the aspects of your lower self. You have not done the lesson in planning. You have not done the necessary work in the aspects of your lower self. So if I'm not doing the work based on my lower self, now I'm naturally going to bring all of that to my heart space, putting more weight on my heart. Heart light as a feather. I'm going to put more weight on my fucking heart. That way when I speak, I'm going to speak from this broken space. I'm going to speak from suffering. I'm going to speak from this aspect of there's nobody motivating me, because I'm not learning the lesson of the aspects of where I learned suffering first. Where did I learn suffering? Where did I learn my definition of suffering? Where did I learn my definition of motivation in that space? Where did I learn that? Discipline comes before motivation in that space. Discipline comes way before motivation. If I'm working in the aspects of my process of discipline, use an example for me, doing my wake up, doing my meditation, getting my day started. That's where, when I sit in that space, that's my motivation. My motivation is now, okay, cool. I know I can sit down for 30 minutes. So I'm motivated to sit here for 30 minutes. I'm motivated to get my breathing. I'm motivated to get my breath work under control. Now, the more you tap into your discipline, the greater the choices and the options and opportunities that you have. The greater your opportunities and choices become. The choices that you can pull from and the options that you have based on those choices. Those change as you now go into that space. But that's based on your discipline. That's based on your discipline. When you're stuck in that state of distraction, you're looking for something to distract yourself. So you can sit there and meditate. You can sit there for 30 minutes and meditate. But since you're so stuck in looking for a distraction, guess what you're going to find? Use an example. How many times have you sat there and you were in your meditation, you sitting there in meditation and your nose started to itch? Like your face started to itch, your hair started to itch, your back, like parts of your body start to itch. Yeah, you get that itch somewhere. And then you reach up and you scratch it. Have you ever tried just sitting there and allowing that shit to pass? Allowing that to pass? Have you ever really thought about it? Every time you sit down in your every time you sitting down to meditate, you notice that there's that scratch out of nowhere. It feels like something sparked at you. There was like a spark that happened. That's your energy. That's aspects of your energy. Similar to if you go study any book on astral projection, go earlier on, motherfuckers wanted to study astral projection. And it tells you to lay down in the bed and allow yourself to be still. And whatever you're feeling, ignore that feeling because you're focusing on your left foot. You're focusing on your left foot, levitate, you moving, you're focusing. All of these aspects are keys to help you learn aspects of focus. For you to bypass to get to the next point. For me to, okay, so if you sitting there, I'm sitting there, it happened to me this rising. I was sitting there, I started my meditation, and I was remembering my hand, the hand gesture I did. I was going through my mood, I was going through my mudras, and I locked in on, this is, if you don't know, this is the one for unbreakable trust. This is the mudra for unbreakable trust. This is the one for unbreakable trust. So I'm sitting in a space like this with my eyes closed, taking my deep breaths in, going through my breathing, going through my breath work, allowing myself to focus, and then my nose started to itch. My hand gesture is unbreakable trust. I'm trusting myself on some what seems remedial to me now, but I'm trusting myself. I'm trusting the process. I'm protected inside of this space. Ain't nothing crawling on me. Ain't nothing happening. I'm going to let that shit pass. I sit there. The itch goes away. I change my hand. I go into the next set of set of hand gestures. I go into my next set of hand gestures. I go through this process. I'm marking off because now this is the aspects of you practicing your meditation, as in this example. I'm going through these gestures and I'm holding them all. I'm timing them to my breath. So if I do if I take in my 6 deep breaths and then I go into my unbreakable trust pose, and I'm sitting there holding that, and I take 5 sets. I do my 5 sets. I do my 5 reps. I do my 5 reps of 6 breaths. That's 30 seconds. For me, that's my 30 seconds. I take my 5 breaths. I take my 6 deep breaths, inhales and exhales. I do that shit in a set of 5. So I do it 6 times, 1 time. When I do 6 breaths, that's 1. Another 6 breaths, that's 2. Another 6 breaths, that's 3. Another 6 breaths, that's 4. The last 6 breaths, that's 5. That's 30. That's 30 seconds. So I've been sitting in this space, in this pose, this position for 30 seconds. All right, cool. Switch to my next gesture. I switch to my next one. I do the same breath. For me using this aspect, this is going into that in the infinite aspect of going to the heart space, or my deeds, the deities that I deal with. One of my top tier deities, Titans, is Chronos. So this is my aspects of moving my energy around my body and the aspects of the cycle through my heart space. So I hold this and go through that same process. As I'm getting higher into the aspects of my mind, then I come into this pose. Now I'm in the aspects of my mind. Go through this process with myself. Now after I went through this, now I'm going through the aspects of explanation. So I put my hands in this pose. Now I'm in the aspects of opening up. So now I go to this pose. Now I'm in the aspects that I'm sitting on that tree, or I'm sitting on that rock, or I'm sitting on that ball of energy because I'm sitting at my highest point. Now I go to this pose. But in order for me to learn how to go through these gestures, I must now, in the beginning process, I must mark with myself as I'm being aware. Meditation is becoming ultimately aware of my body, of where my body's at. The first time I ever held this pose, ever, and I was sitting there like this, my lower back was killing me to sit with my hands in a trust pose, to hold the unbreakable trust mudra. I'm sitting there trying to hold this, and my lower back is fucking killing me to sit straight up, to keep my posture up into that space. My lower back is fucking killing me. I marked that shit down. What does it mean when your lower back's killing you? That means that means I'm not carrying weight correctly. Everything starts in the aspects of your lower back anyway. Think about your lower back, your core. That means in my core, that means in my root area, I'm not secured or I'm not grounded. That means something's not circulating down in that space. That means I don't feel as confident as I need to be. I do not feel as confident or competent to what I'm doing. I don't feel empowered to what I'm doing. I'm marking these aspects inside of that space. Those become my next set of lessons. That becomes the stuff that I write out. That becomes the stuff that I'm looking at. That becomes the things that are creating impact in order for me to have inspiration, in order to keep doing to stay within that space. I'm getting exactly what I need to get. It does you no good to speak an affirmation that everything is provided for me if your intention is based on money. If my intention is based on money, my intention is based on getting a good job, my intention is based on the byproduct. That's the fetish. Your intention becomes based on the byproduct. I want to make more money. What about the resource? What about the resource? What about the resource? There's three. For me, I've created three. I'm creating out this, what's called the 3 R's. Reputation, resources, and relationships. Reputation, resources, and relationships. Those are the most important things, period. Those are the most important things. Those are the most important things. Instead of you always trying to put that cart before, exactly not Lee. Sitting inside of that space, I understand that my reputation, the resources my reputation leads to the resources and the relationships that are in sync with those resources. Get what I'm saying? So if I'm stuck in a lower emotional wave with myself, my emotional intelligence is low as shit. I'm stuck in fear, guilt. I'm stuck in survival mode. I'm stuck in that wave with myself. Then naturally, my reputation is based on guilt. Let's make it simple and plain. My reputation was based on guilt. So my resources are going to be the things that trigger my guilt. My resources are going to be that of what trigger my need for guilt. Because I'm telling myself everything's absolute. I'm triggering my need for guilt. So now my relationships, whether it be the person, whether it be people, whether it be the job, whether it be TV, wherever it is, that relationship that I carry for it is going to make me feel guilty. It's going to make me feel guilty. So as long as I'm not learning that, and if I'm not acknowledging it, that means I can't accept it. That means I can't audit it. 9 times out of 10, the moment that you feel guilty, you're going to try to ride that wave of guilt or whatever it is. You'll ride that excitement of the guilt, not feeling guilty. And then as soon as you get off work or you leave, as soon as you get off work, you go do some shit that makes you feel less guilty. So for some people, you're going to eat a bunch of food. Some people, whatever your vice is. That's what empowers your vice. That's what empowers your urge. So then you go do that. The moment that you do it, and now you got that release from it, how do you feel? You feel more guilty. You feel even more guilty. You feel even more guilty. You went and smoked. You went to go smoke. You went to go smoke, or you went to go pop pills, or you went and did fucking shrooms or whatever it may be, psychedelic. You went and popped that shit, and then throughout that space, because that's a higher level of shit, throughout that space, you were blaming it on what that was. So you're blaming it on something external that only enhances what's already presently there. You blame you smoking weed you blame smoking weed on the fact that you went and ordered $150 of shit worth on DoorDash. So think about that aspect. That's the fetish. You're blaming your fetish. You're blaming, i.e. your vice. You're blaming your vices. Your fetish becomes society. Man, society says that men can't do this. Society says women can't do this. Until you understand that the simplest form of definition for society is only as strong as the individuals that subscribe to it. So whether or not you're for or against something doesn't matter, because that yes and the no, remember that's the yes and the no, that energy is still being plugged into that. Your idea of what a man should be in society, of what society says a man should be and what a man should do, whether you agree or disagree, you're projecting your energy into that space because you're subscribing to it. You're getting away, but at that same time, until you understand that, you don't understand your way out. Same thing for women. Women should do this, da-da-da-da-da-da, and all that aspect. That gets into the aspect when we think about the divine masculine. I was watching a couple videos. I posted a video in one of the groups I'm in. And the dude asked the question, was like, if men cook, clean, take care of themselves, take care of their basics from their masculine energy, they don't shift into their feminine energy when they're cleaning. They don't shift into their feminine energy when they're cooking. They don't shift into their feminine energy when they're cleaning up the crib and they lighting up the smell good candles. They stay inside of their masculine energy. Then they ask questions like, so why does the feminine feel the need to switch into the masculine? The woman can't answer the question. It posed the question in aspects of the fetish aspect. It goes into the aspect when we think about the aspects of gender wars. We're like, well, as soon as a man does this, and this, then I'll be feminine. Okay, cool. Bet. Okay. So then it poses the aspect. So I already have to show up I have to show up a certain way for you to act a certain way. And then vice versa. Think about what you now create inside of that space. Because you're in your lower aspects of yourself. You have not learned you have not developed these keys, you have not developed these lesser keys with understanding using these lesser keys. Of course, everything you're going to attract is going to be based on the lesser keys. Everything you attract is going to be based on the lesser keys of attraction, of things that you've done that connects to your vice. So it's going to make you naturally uncomfortable. It's going to make you naturally uncomfortable. I remember for a whole period in time for myself when I was working in the regular space, and I would get approached by chicks I would be watching chicks like be straight up fucking hoes. Like they were being straight up fucking scandalous, chicken headish, and all types of shit. Like they would be scandalous as fuck saying the shit they'd be saying. Well, yeah, I was with his friend the other. Like I'm listening to it like, oh wow. I never got involved. Like they never brought that question to me or thought to me into that space. It wasn't until this was the thing. It wasn't until I started going into that space based on the impression, based on a vice, based on something that I felt that I needed, because I thought it was, for me, inside of that space, thinking about the masculine process, my aspect of the old masculine concept was to validate my aggression. Whether it was to validate my aggression or to validate my passiveness. Was it to validate my need to, was it validating my need to have sex in an undisciplined manner? What was I trying to validate? I talked about it last week when I was talking about the aspects of all of my, in the aspects of really thinking about it, I had 12 jobs. I had 12 jobs, and I've had 12 jobs, and I've had 12 relationships. Breaking that down, it was like, no, I didn't have a relationship. And on the surface level, I had a relationship for every job. But in reality, these jobs, like, if a relationship may have been my job, I held a job for like 5 years, 6 years or whatever. Then I had a relationship in there that was like 2 years, had another relationship that might have been 3 years. Then I had a potential relationship that might have been a year. That cleared out that 6 year gap right there was those three relationships to that for one job. But this is the thing, until I got down to the breakdown of it was, for me, was as long as I had a job or something externally feeding me, I didn't have to worry about anything. I didn't have to stress about anything. I didn't have to worry or stress about shit. I had to worry or stress about shit. But because I created that space based off stress, worry, because I didn't build that space based off stress, worry, disrespect, those are all surface level. That's all context. That's all the context of the emotion. The real reason that I created those spaces was based on trying to be accepted, not trying to be rejected, trying to impose my will on the others. These aspects, these lower keys of my emotional intelligence. Since I was using my lesser keys of emotional intelligence to build these spaces, disorganized, I'm moving in this sense of, when I break down the aspects of, I was surviving in dysfunction. I was used to surviving in dysfunction. My original space that I came from was dysfunction. So I was used to surviving in dysfunction. I was used to surviving in dysfunction. I did not know how to operate in chaos and bring order to my chaos, because I wasn't bringing order to my internal chaos. I wasn't bringing order to the internal conflicts. So, of course, now I look at the types of jobs that I had, the types of environments that I went in, the type of societal norms I subscribed to. All of that was because this is what I mean by all of this shit's internal. All of this shit's internal. All of this shit's internal. But we're giving this feature or this facility for ourselves in our mindsets of, we'll hear that everything's internal, you got to go within. But without going through the actual process, we don't understand how it's within. I don't understand how my issues with my mom's, my issues with my mom's, or my lack of having a father figure can translate into that. You have to take it out of, I give this to my clients. You have to break it out of that shell of the limited identity that you gave it. You named it mom. So your first aspects of feeling disrespected, you named it mom. You named it your sister. You named it your aunt. You named it your first girlfriend. You named it your first job. You keep naming it over and over. You keep changing out the name, but it's still the same shit within it. You ain't breaking it out of that space and sitting with it. And that's a process. That is a process in itself. We got so used to the aspect of, okay, cool. The reason I'm going through all this bullshit is because I'm conscious. I'm awake. I'm conscious. I'm the black sheep. That was the same shit you were told whenever. That was the same line, fucking package that you learned if you came through religion. When you were Christian, when you were Muslim, whatever religion you subscribe to. And not just the aspects of Christianity. In aspect, religion simply, remember, religion means to bind. So whatever indoctrination you were bonded to, you may have never went to fucking church a day in your damn life. But your church, that gathering, was hiding in your room when your dad got off because your dad was drunk. Your dad was fucked up. He went to the bar, got fucked up. Your mom said your dad coming home, go in your room, lock your door, stay protected. That was your church. That was your indoctrination. That was your indoctrination. That conversation that your mother had about your father not being shit, that was your indoctrination. That conversation that you kept having with yourself about, I wish I could have stood up to my pops and protected my mother and protected my sisters. That was a part of your indoctrination. See, when we keep thinking about indoctrination, we keep making it surface level. It was because of Jesus. It's because they put Jesus on us. It was because they put this on us. How, in the personal tense, did it affect you? The how. How did, in a personal tense, did it affect you personally? How did you now attach to subscribing to whatever external conduit or external totem, whether it be feminism, modern woman, passport bros, plantation bros, red pill, blue pill? How did you connect? How did you first attach to that? Because that's where your fetish lies. That's what you've been doing with aspects of fetishing. The fetishization of your shit. The fetishization of you wanting to be around. You didn't went and spend $600, $3,000 over the course of fucking the last 8 years buying all these fucking statues. You done built this master altar in your fucking crib, but you have no altar to yourself. You ain't got no altar in your house to yourself. Ultimately, yes, all of these altars are aspects of you, but you don't even have the first built altar to yourself. Why? Because you skipped the step of getting that one candle, getting that pack of incense, and starting that process. You skipped over all of that. You attach the highs and the lows of your lack of emotional intelligence. You attached your anger. You attached your guilt. You attached your shame. You attached your insecurity. You attached all of these aspects to your spiritual worship, to your fetish, to you fetishing, working with spirits and deities. You attached all of it to that. So now that you're at a point where you can't go, because fear only can go but so far. You only can go as far as you're resolved. Now that you filled up your space with another layer of unresolved, now you're sitting in that space looking for another way out, that another quick fix. I said this shit last year. No, I said this the beginning of last year. In the year before that, so we're going to give context to the timeline. I was talking about this earlier on in the beginning of the fucking year. Earlier last year, and the year before. An aspect of, you're now inside of a space where your shadow is now visible. Your shadow is fully visible. There is no more veil. The shift that you needed to go through, you went through. You went through the shift. But since you're so used to looking outwards for external examples of what the fuck happened, and you don't see what you think you should see because you're so used to something being fed to you, you never learn how to feed yourself. So how deep, so how much in reality with yourself if you haven't learned to feed yourself? How far can you go if you haven't learned to feed yourself? You're only gonna go but so far. That's intelligence. You can intellectually feed yourself. Ooh, let's use the aspects. I need the basics of the 4 food groups from the food. You're still moving from the 4 food groups of the food pyramid to feed yourself. You're intellectualizing things because you haven't learned how to sit with your emotions. You haven't learned the lesser keys. So you treat everything as a one and done instead of a continuous process. You're treating everything as a one and done rather than it being a continuous process. Oh my God. So now you went from this to now you're looking for somebody. And here's the key. Here's one of the things that nobody's fucking noticed. Like if you're not noticing it and being able to impact it. All of the aspects that you used to use to give you this sense of, yep, so you can agree with it because it left a nice impression on you because you like the way that they talk. You like the way that they said certain things. You're noticing that shit don't really exist anymore. Once you're outside of these loops, this is one thing that I really get into. Once you step outside of that fucking loop, you start to see how things start to loop. You start to see, like clockwork, how the beginning of the year, like for example, the beginning of the year, everybody was talking about, spring. Was it spring ain't until March? Okay, cool. My death day is in February. My death day was the 16th of this month. That was my death day. I knew spring. I know that. I know the calendar. I know the system of the calendar that's being used. It's not based on a lunar cycle or the subconscious cycle. It's based on the sun cycle of your person. I know it's based on that cycle, what cycle is based on. But instead of me jumping and hooting and hollering about it, I just used the energy that came up. Everybody talking about all that. I was like, okay, cool, that's bet. Let me go light this candle for Valentine. Let me go light this red candle and absorb this Valentine's Day energy. Let me light this green candle. Let me light this green candle for Black History Month. Let me go light this green candle for grounding it. So now I got red, black, and green burning. I'm tapped into all those fucking energies. Let me just do that aspect. I'm not affected. I'm not triggered because I'm already present I'm already present in my own world. I'm already present in my own world and own space. I already got my discipline in play. I already got my shit going. So every time something comes up, before when something would come up, yes, I would quickly try to, I want to be involved in everything. Instead, I was like, wait, I wasn't called to that. Because if I'm called to something, it's not going to be a sense of, the feeling is going to be a real feeling. I'm not going to question it. If I'm called to something energetically, I'm not going to question it. And even if I do question it, I'm asking myself, why these questions? Why these feelings? Instead of me writing it off as somebody's trying to somebody's trying to do work on me. Somebody's trying to fuck with my energy. Somebody's trying to do this. Someone's trying to intrude my thoughts. Instead of me using surface level triggers based on a lack of impression or a lack of inspiration, I can actually sit with it. Go through the process of sitting with it and going about my business. That's the aspect of you coming into this space of understanding the importance of understanding how you communicate. Everybody, I'm gonna go learn how to channel. Meanwhile, you got 50. How are you gonna learn how to channel if you already have 50 some odd voices, 50 plus voices going on in your head at one time anyway. You have over 50 fucking doubts playing in your mind at once. You got 50 fucking insecurities playing in your mind at once. You got 50 senses of guilt. You have 50 reasons of guilt and shame talking in your head at once. But you want to go learn how to go channel spirits. All you're going to do is enhance what's already present. So now when that insecurity gets loud as shit in your mind because you have not worked on that insecurity, and it comes through as a deity, and it takes on the form of that deity. So now you got Asmodeus coming through. You're like, oh my God. Or I got Baphomet coming through. And then all of a sudden you go on your fucking Facebook page and you see, yep, they're still doing satanic rituals. So then you fed it, now it goes away. Because that's all it wanted was fear. If you're stuck in a space of fear, you're going to feed the fear. Now it goes away. Now you lose access to it. The only way you're going to get access back to it is the same way. It has to be some type of fear. It has to be some type of fear-based narrative for you to tap into it. That's no different than you when you woke up and looked in the mirror. You woke up and looked in the mirror and you said, damn, I need a haircut. No different. Damn, man, these pants don't fit. You're stuck in reaction. You're stuck in reaction. You basically, all you're doing is dressing it up in a new form so you can continue doing the same shit. You gave it a new outfit. You gave it a new outfit. You gave it a new outfit. You gave it a new voice. You gave it a new sense of purpose. You gave it a new body, new outfit, new sense of purpose, so you don't have to be present. Yep. You gave it its new look so you can steadily so you're still not going to be present. Because that's all you're doing is like, okay, cool. Now you're not present. Now I don't have to be present over there because now I got that working for me. Okay, cool. It's Monday. I'm going to work with Papa Legba and Isis. I'm going to work with these energies on that space, on that altar for that day. And that's what's going to protect me in that space. But you never become the feminine principle, which would be Isis. You never become Maya. You never become that aspect of that energy. Because in your mind, you're like, the only way I can become, like this was the example for the women, the only way I can become my full Isis and Maya energy is if a man comes, because you got to think about what you've already programmed into the space. In order for me to do that, a man must provide this, this, and this. So now you go to your job. You go to your job, whether your job is a man, for example, or your job is a woman. So you're saying that this woman at your job, use an example, the woman at your job, your boss, that is clearly stuck inside of her, she's acting in her masculine energy to lead the company or lead the job, lead the shift. Now what you're saying is, why doesn't she submit to what I want? So what do you give as submission? You want to take some time off. You want to change your schedule. Take some time off, and things of that nature. But you don't even understand the process. In order for her to submit and accept your request, you got to have the knowledge and the reason for it. That means you actually got to build it out. I remember one of the first times, it was like I always talk about the last job. I was at my job and I remember scheduling off my birthday week, like scheduling off my death day weekend. My death day weekend falls, of course, after Valentine's Day. Busiest time in the world for restaurants. Most restaurants, hospitality, hotels and shit. I put that request in the year prior. Put it in a year prior. Put it in. We got new management and shit. She called me to the office. I walked into the office. She was like, I see that you took off Valentine's Day and the 15th, 16th, 17th. You took off from the 14th to the 22nd, 23rd. I was like, yeah. She was like, I need you, if you want that to happen, you got to call our area director. And then she has to okay it. I was like, okay. That same day, she gave me the area. I already had the area director's number, but she gave me the area director's number. I acted as a fool. The wise can act as a fool. Learning how to use these lessons. She gave me the number. When I got to the house, after I took a shower, got myself ready to go to bed and shit. Before that, I called my area director. Of course, I know my area director's not going to answer the phone because she don't answer unknown phone numbers. Of course. It's an Aquarius thing. That's another aspect of the lesson. I left her the message. She never replied to she never called me back. But I knew this. In my mind, I was like, I'm either going to work during the, I told before we left from that conversation, I was like, well, I can work in the AM. I can work in the AM because I ain't got to leave my plane don't leave until that night. When I got to work that day of Valentine's Day, walked in, my boss, the manager, GM at the time, looked me in my face and was like, just tell me when you need to leave. I set my intention, put in my affirmation, got the result that was necessary. Regardless of whatever the result was, she was like, okay, she accepted I can work in the AM. Cool. I remember being at that point at the time of the day. I'm working my shift. I'm working that day shift. We knocking out food. We knocking shit out. I'm like, I bet. I remember I had my headset on. I called the manager. I called my GM to my boss to the back. I was like, all right, cool. I gotta get to the house to make sure I got the rest of my shit back so I can hit my plane. She came into the back. She walked to the back. She was like, and even though this is the funny part, using aspects of emotion, even though everything she said was not sincere and sarcastic as fuck, and she was trying to like cut me down and use these sly ass remarks to me leaving, I laughed at it. Instead of me feeling some type of way, I just said, why, thank you. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for your understanding of how, thank you for understanding the importance of honoring my time to myself. Thank you. She looked at me in my face. She looked so fucking upset. She was so, everything going through her mind, she was like, I don't like you. All that shit. But instead of me reacting in a way that would lead to, instead of me reacting into a way, I closed out that loop. I left from that. Got to the crib. That day in particular was that Valentine's Day for that year was on a Friday. So I was doing Friday night lectures at the time. I did my whole lecture that Friday. It was the Heart of Mind lecture that's on my YouTube channel, on Somni Vision on my YouTube channel. I did that whole lecture. I'm sitting there vibing with everybody, talking to everybody. Did that whole lecture. Went to sleep, woke up, caught my plane, and I was gone. Came back the next week. Because I now started the reason that a lot of this stuff, yes, you're taking your power back and now you're defining your power. The way that you go into a space is the way that you're going to leave out of that space. The way that something starts is the way that the way that something starts, you have to continuously keep doing that shit continuously in order for that shit to remain. So if you do shit based on fear, guess what you got to do? You got to keep fear up. Therefore, if you're not living through the fear, now you got to have someone indirectly living through the fear. So if like you get it, like using it, you got your crib, you built, like I can guarantee most of the time in most spaces, your apartment complex, your housing, your neighborhood, you got to think about how originally how that shit was created. You've had the answer, you get the answer every fucking time when you're told that, yo, the United States of America was built off of guns and business. Guns and entrepreneurship. War and business. War and business. War was a business. That's what this shit was built. That's what this space was built off of. You feel what I'm saying? So instead of me complaining about, man, they always want us to go to war and all these fights and all these lies and these conspiracies, let me learn let me learn this shit. Let me learn it. Because that's when I'm going to put into practice. That's the practicality of spirituality. Instead of me looking at every conspiracy video talking about Masons and how they built all these fucking monuments and shit and put all this shit on these ley lines, why am I not learning that? Because you created those ley lines every fucking day. You got your first crib off of fear. Got your first job off of fear. That's why the moment that you found a relationship or a replacement that you thought you was in love, but it was actually lusting or fetish. Oh my God, she thinks I'm a great guy. Oh my God, she thinks I'm great. Oh my God, he thinks I'm sexy. You shifted that energy over. Mm-hmm. You shifted that ley line. You shifted that ley line. But since you have not built out that space that we call the aspects, since you have not built inside of that space of love, what you're going to be tapping into is not going to be love. It's going to be distorted. It's going to be dysfunction. That's why you always felt that all of your relationships, that you felt that you was trying to be a man, so you fought her ex-boyfriend, fought her baby father. She called you all times through the night or some bullshit. That was the dysfunction. That was you reestablishing that ley line. That's what you view relationships as. You sit here saying crazy bitches got the best. No, bitches. No, nigga. Emotionally dysfunction. You feed off of emotional dysfunction. That's why it feels so good to you. You feed off of emotional dysfunction. No, sis. That nigga protected you. No. You feed off of emotional dysfunction. You want this nigga to handle you. No, you're feeding off of emotional dysfunction. You have the inability to regulate one's own emotions. Shorty do whatever I tell her to do. No, nigga, the space that you have created, my guy, no matter how spiritual you made it, no matter how spiritual you have made that space, don't matter. Energetically, it matches an environment in which she's came from. It's familiar to her energetically. That's why the moment you actually start to try to level up inside of that space, it don't work. If two of us get together and we doing this, and this, then we gonna have more money. That ain't how it worked. How did y'all come together? Think about it like this. You built yourself up to make 300, you making 20 grand a month. You making 5 figures a month. You making 20 grand a month. You've learned to spend less than what you make. So you making 20 grand a month as an example. You making 20 grand a month, but all of your bills and your expenses and everything, it only totals up to about 8 grand a month. About 8 grand. About 8,000. About 8 grand a month. That means you got what is that? Yeah. So you make that's that $8,000. You spend $8,000 a month from that 20 grand. Dig what I'm saying? So that's like what, you got $12,000 left over? So that $12,000, now that $12,000 is just sitting there. You built out the space of your budget to be able to spend less, but you still got to keep doing the work continuously. So now you got 12 grand sitting over there. Now this 12 grand has the gut. This 12 grand or these 12 this current flow right here has to be defined. It has to be defined or it will burn itself out. So let's say, okay, cool. Now you got a savings account, whatever it may be. Now you meet a shorty, as an example, and this is interchangeable to change the shorty to the man and the man to shorty, whatever it may be. You meet a shorty and she makes $8,000 a month. She making her little $8,000 a month. She making her little 10 bands a month in that nature, but she's spending $10,000. She's spending $10,000 a month. That means every single month, she's dependent upon making that money. You meet her. Y'all meet up. Y'all meet each other. You like her hustle. You like that she's all about her money. You like her hustle. So you're impressed by her hustle. You're impressed by her hustle. Since she has her own, you have no problem giving to her. You ain't got no problem trying to show her, because now this is when your insecurity comes in. You got that extra 12 G's, and now you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to spend that 12 G. Now I got a place, okay, I can take her out to eat and do all this type of stuff because she's taking care of her own shit. But you don't know that she's spending her 10 grand, that money that she was making. Think about it. If she depended on every day of the week, the month to make 10 grand, and you start taking her out, now she's not going to work. She ain't going to work. She's taking days off. You thought it was cool to say, hey, girl, I'll pay for your whole day off. She take a day off. Or maybe she's the only, whatever it may be. Since you have not defined, it's not, so basically it boils down to, we'll shorten that up. It boils down to, okay, cool. Now you're noticing that she needs money she's telling, now 3 months go in, y'all, 3 weeks then went in, y'all done already smashed. And now all of a sudden she's saying, dang, I need money for my rent. My rent is almost due. My electric is on the 6th extension. And then you sitting there like, man, every time I meet a chick, they always say they need something and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Pause. Freeze with your stupid ass self. Pause with your stupid ass self. All right, cool. Let's make that same aspect. Let's create another story for the ladies. You meet a dude, you meet a guy that you like what he does. You like how he spends money, and then you like how he spends his energy inside of that space. You got your own place and you got all your shit together, and you're noticing that this person is giving you a lot of attention inside of that space in regards to the things that you feel that you need that are external. But now, now y'all didn't cross that threshold, became physical, and now you didn't jump into that space, and now this person is telling you that we got to make a budget, telling you these things, and you don't like know how none of that sounds. All right, pause, hold both of those fucking stories. You created your space the same way they created their space. For the aspects of the feminine aspect, it was a fetish. You liked her. You were impressed by her hustle. You were impressed by her hustle, the way that she dressed, the way that she looked, the way that she was inside of that space. You were impressed by it. Instead, it gave you the sense of the delusion or the distraction for yourself. So now you're distracted from, damn, I ain't got a budget. I've done good to this point in my discipline. I've done good to this point with my discipline to this point, but now I don't know what else to do. That was your lesson that comes in. On the other end, you tired of meeting these same motherfuckers. But that becomes your lesson. Your vetting system. How are you listening? What are you communicating inside of that space? How are you actually communicating inside of that space? What conversations are you actually having? Do you know how to have those conversations? Do you understand how to do you have the comprehension skills? Do you know what to look for? How to listen? Things of that nature. That's the same aspect whenever you dealing with any other type. All this energy, if you don't understand basic levels, aspects of your lower self, when you trying to tap into these higher aspects of yourself, that shit burns out faster because it's at a higher regard. You have not learned to cultivate your energy to that level. That's all that's letting you know. So let's take that same story I said about the dudes, about the guys. In your space, you ain't learned boundaries. You were just excited because you still have that insecurity that you were like, oh my God, a girl actually thinks I'm cute and want to do things, talk to me. But think about where you learned it. You ain't sat back with that lesson of seeing how your pops did the same shit. You ain't sat with that imprint. You ain't sat with the initial impression. So it can keep being pressed on. So you have this ideal of what the feeling should be. You have this ideal of what that feeling should be based on context of thought, but you don't actually know what that feeling is. But you're living it. The same lack, the same doubt, that same anger that your pops had all them fucking years. You're still living that out. The same shit that your mother, you're still living those things out. And all you're doing is taking that shit from the lower levels. You're trying to transmute that through the heart space and bringing it to the higher space. One thing that I learned from my grandmother taught me that. She tapped me on my shoulder right now with it. Never ask for what you do not already have. One thing that I've learned is do not ask for what you do not already have. From her level where she was at in herself in that space while she was in the physical plane, of course, I knew she was talking about make sure you got your own crib and all of that shit. But the undertone of that energetically was making sure that making sure that the only way I don't have to ask for something that I naturally already have is because I've actually created it. I'm not emulating it. That's the aspects of that process. Use this example. You can complain every single day about the banking system and the bank is fucking your life up and the government is fucking your life up. You can complain about that shit all day. They putting all types of shit in the fucking food and all that shit type of the day. Your mind is going to go into regression before it goes. Your mind to go into regression, that means the past, before you go into the stance of the present. So while you're sitting there thinking about living off the grid, we got to get back to farming and living off the grid. While you're thinking about going to the Stone Age, back to an oilier age, it don't even matter. It don't matter if you start farming right now. It don't matter if you start farming in your own garden right now. It don't matter what you build up because it's only going to be based on an emulation. It's only going to be based on an emulation because you have not created the infrastructure for that to happen. You ain't even created the basic infrastructure. Because whether you want to or not, and really understand that aspect or not, money is an illusion and these things are illusion. We don't need money. We can go back to bartering. At a certain point in time, you need that frequency of currency. But if your frequency of currency is still going through Bank of America, then you're subsequently investing into the same banking system, the same system that you're against, wondering how the system can sustain itself when you're the one putting into the sustainment of that system. Or I'm just going to let all my accounts go into the negative. Similar to if you never realize, if you go research it, just like when you look at the aspects in the hood, when you go through the hoods and like all the hood, you see all those houses they've been purchased and all of those shits are under eminent domain. That means the owners of those properties or that land development gets paid regardless if somebody lives there or not. They get paid more for that shit to just sit there like that. They get paid more for it to sit there like that. That's the same shit you do with your fucking bank. They still gonna get paid regardless. That's the same thing you do in aspects of your relationships. The longer that you keep beating on your chest, the longer you keep beating on your chest instead of you actually sitting like, you know what, I really need to start this new building process. The longer you keep beating on your fucking chest about shit, I'm a man, I'm masculine, or I'm divine feminine, dark feminine energy, I'm this. As long as you keep saying that shit, but you're not building anything that aligns with it, you're only going to keep feeding the same shit. The love and light of, I'm going to take my power back. When people come to me, said, I started taking my power back and all this wild shit started happening. Did you define and then we go through the process in the consultation or a session. Have you sat with that aspect of that information? Like your power, you calling this power back to you, is it justified? It ain't about if it's good or bad. Is it just because when you get to a certain, you want to jump stuff and go into the higher spiritual realms. The spiritual realm don't move on good and bad. It moves on justified and unjustified, disciplined and undisciplined, chaos and order. That's how that works. That's how it works in the higher realms. That shit don't move off time. It don't move off time and the limited aspects that you're stuck in with your lower self. It don't matter if you're a good fucking person. Don't matter. I'm a good fucking person. I do this. That don't fucking matter. Was it justified? You could have did a bunch of good shit, but the reason that it didn't give you the result that you wanted because none of it was justified. It wasn't justified. It was unjust as fuck to that area. I tried to come into that man's life and make him better. I tried to come into Shorty's life and make her life better. It wasn't justified. That's why there was a constant need that's why it was constant dysfunction, because nothing you did was justified. Because when you went into that space, you had the intention to change the environment instead of understanding how this is going to show me what I need to deal with and change with myself. How do I align with this in that space? How do I align with the higher aspect? I desire to have a divine alignment, a divine partner. I desire to have a divine partner. How do I align with what I'm looking? How do I align with it? Alignment is about feeling. Attachment is always about thought. Attachment is always going to be based on thought, while alignment is based on feeling. Attachment is based on thought. What you think you should have, what you think it should be, how you think it should be. You're fucking melded to the outcome. Versus connection, alignment is based on the feeling. I understand my feelings. I understand how I feel. I understand these emotions. If I don't understand these emotions, let me sit with these emotions. If it's making me want to act in a certain way, let me sit with this first. Let me set, what pace am I living at? What pace am I acting on? So you're shifting from that aspect of stuck in the impression or fetish. You stuck on fetish, you want a fetish, I'm a good person. Somebody's going to see me as a good person. You want somebody to fetish. Now it's the appropriation of making you a fetish. Man, I ain't never had a good... So now you get excited every time someone says to you, I ain't never had a good woman before in my life. I ain't never had a good man in my life before. That's how you get stuck on. So now you don't have to tap into your feelings. You can use their feelings. The same way you use everything else to attach. Now you're using a feeling of attachment to attach your trauma, your unresolved, the things that work versus the things that didn't work. If this person does this, and this. If this job does this, and this. Detriment versus exalted. Exactly. You're going to attach everything. As long as they do these things, I can deal with this. And everything in between, we'll worry about it when we get there. Because you ain't built out that space. You ain't built out that space yet. These become those major keys. These become those major keys in the aspect of you learning yourself. When you hear knowledge of self, you thought it was to go get everything about Africa and everything about Egypt and everything about... No. That's surface level. That's the results of what your ancestors learned about themselves. That's the results. In where they were at, in the space they were at, in the mindset that they were in the timeline that they were in, the reality that we're in, the reality that they were in, that's what they learned. And then this is the result of that, what they learned. So now you sitting inside of this space and you're trying to go back there when you can see how advanced that was. Use that example. Think about how advanced that shit was. You keep looking at stone tablets of, oh my God, we had floating cars and we had guns and we had all this shit. I looked in the Michael Jackson Bad album. He had a phone on his head. He was holding a phone up to his ear. They had cell. So now I got to think about the aspects of technology. How am I investing into this current space? I can't invest in the past. I only can invest in this current space of current reality. And in this reality, I can now create the new realities. Instead of making it sound oh yeah, I'm all these new fucking realities. What is your process of tapping it? Because before we could use the inspiration, because we were coming out of a certain space. That's what the inspirational space was. That's what our teachers were. That's what our original historians and teachers did. They gave us a sense of inspiration. It was for a sense of inspiration. It was a sense of inspiration. Inspiration becomes redundant in order for it to be devolved, in order for we can come into a new set of inspiration. So if you're not learning anything in a new inspiration or applying any new mechanics, what are you really doing? I'm going to be a spiritual teacher. What are you going to teach? I'm going to sell spiritual products. So you're going to be the 15th nigga or the 15th chick to put fucking peace God on a t-shirt? You're going to be the 15th nigga to put peace God on a t-shirt. You're going to be the 15th motherfucker to talk about satanic rituals. What are you doing? All you're doing is extending the fetish. You want the context of that feeling without having to really do any fucking work. You don't want shit to break down. You don't want shit to break down for real. You don't want this shit to be over. That's why you keep saying this shit's over. Because you don't really want it to be over. You don't really want it to be over. You just want it to be minimized just enough for you to be able to keep doing what you're doing to say that you did something. You want to stay in that sense of detriment. You want to stay in that disassociation because it helps you not deal with the shit that you need to deal with. You want to avoid coming into that exalted state of yourself because it's an actual process where those feelings that you first had are going to repeat themselves. That feeling of not being good enough is going to repeat itself. Of course, it's supposed to. If I can move through everything inside of my space, like I use this example, and I'm going to do a collective reading. I'm going to use this example. Before coming to this point of speaking on a regular basis, my issue wasn't speaking to others. My issue wasn't speaking, sharing, breaking things down. My issue was the source and where I got it, the source from where it came from. That was my issue. So when I would say things or when I would do things, the first thing that I had to push through was me becoming the source or the vessel. And that's when I had to work on my self-worth, my self-value. These internal wounds, you got to work on those internal wounds. Okay, if you don't, you've seen the results of motherfuckers that do not work on their wounds. They become argumentative. They become very argumentative. They always seem angry. They always seem in this lower state of trying to make people look stupid on purpose. Because that's how they feed. But when I came into that state of transparency, this is the opening to this, without transparency, the process is altered. Your ego takes on another inferior identity. Your thought process still becomes part of that inferior identity. It dilutes your healing process. It dilutes what you need in order to protect your unresolved. So now it doesn't work. So your ego dilutes it in order for it to stay where it's at, because you haven't came like, yo, I appreciate what the fuck you've done. I appreciate what you've done for me. I appreciate what you did when you did it as we did it. Because I did not know any fucking better. But as we're moving forward, I'm about to take these reins, and I need you to ride as my partner in this. If you ain't having that conversation with yourself, you can't unlock transparency. And of course, your ego's gonna buck, kick, and scream, because that's all it knows how to do until you start to re-fucking train it. Until you actually get familiar with it. That's your demiurge. That's your demiurge. That's your Yadaldabrov. That's the reptile. That's the lower level of the reptile people that you keep trying to buck against. They all reptile. The white people is reptiles and blah da 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 da. No, that's all the aspects of your lower self coming up to you. That's that conversation that's that one conversation that's that one set of every time that you try to have a conversation with your pops left your ass unable to fucking speak. Had your ass scared to even say anything back because of his tone and his voice. But that was that motherfucker's actual tone. He commanded respect. And since you took that as he never respected me, you never could take him out of being dad and being like, damn, my pop's name is John, and John, what was his life like? So you can't even start processing it because you still got this hold on not being transparent. You still got the hold on not being transparent. Yes, as the sun rises, I'm on my Eleanor shit, so my voice got stronger. You don't even know how to tap into energy and use it as it comes up. That instant of using your energy. Because there's always something blocking it. Because you haven't went through those lower level you haven't went through that process. Until you go through that process, you cannot, as I've said this before, until you go through that process, until you do this work, you will never be able to fully tap into that energy. You will only be able to tap into that energy via something else. Via some deity, via a deity, via a sigil. You're still going to be stuck inside of that space. You're going to get to, when you get to the point to where you say, okay, cool, I only need sigils when I'm doing something new. I'm a living sigil. It's like, use the example. Everybody that motherfucking still scared of Baphomet, the inverted pentagram, the six-pointed star, like all of these different symbols, you don't even realize how your body forms those symbols. You don't even know how to create your space. Like, for example, in my room, when I do my meditations, I have these two pieces right here. I have on my wall, and I stick them. They hang like this. They come into the feminine principle. Whenever I'm doing my meditations and I'm going through my mudras, I'm shaping and putting my hands in the form. All my shit always points up. In the visualization, if I was to open my eyes while I'm visualizing and look at that shit on the wall, look at how I got my shit on the wall, this is how I integrate with it. The masculine integrating with the feminine, the unseen. While my eyes closed, I have trust in myself to interlock with that energy. You get what I'm saying? Learning the aspects of things of that aspects of the process. Like, for example, because I'm working on my tattoo designs. This entire arm right, my left arm being on the right to you guys, this arm right here, this is going to be covered in the feminine principles to show the integration of the masculine with the feminine. This arm right here being my right arm and connected to my left side. This is being aspects, so it shows me the aspects of the feminine integrated with the feminine. It's going to be a masculine presence on this arm to integrate with the aspects of my masculine, my feminine integration. If you don't understand, go look at the movie Constantine when the nigga put his arms together and he got the signs on his arms. All of this shit is able for you to be used and to be tapped into. But if you don't understand how to tap into it, if this is the thing, if you're not tapping into it fully, then you're not tapping into it. You're no longer inside of a space to where I can do some halfway shit and get some halfway shit out of it. That's not where the shift happened. The shift that happened made this shit available to the ones that are on that level where it makes it available to that level of where you're actually at. You ain't there yet, it's all right. You got some work to do. You just got some work to do. Stop trying to rush and trying to make that shit something that it's not. Because that's how you get stuck. That's how you keep getting stuck in those spaces. Because you went in a certain way. You went in when you were scared. Let's use an example. You went in when you were scared, upset, whatever it may have been. That's the reason that you went and stood in front of your altar and you built your altar up because you were like, I need a new job. I'm tired of my boss. I'm angry. And you went into that space that way. So the only way for you to get out of that space is for the anger to be greater on one end to push you back out. So your boss pissed you off to make you quit. That was the energy becoming greater than you to be removed. Because you don't know how to move through it. You don't know how to move through it because that takes feeling. Feeling is the aspects of the subtleties of stealth. That's the darkness. The darkness is purity. Now, we've talked about this before. The darkness is purity. The impurities inside of your darkness is your own fucking shadows. That's your own fucking shadow that you ain't dealt with. That's where the undisciplined demons dwell. Similar to when you in the aspects of the light. That's where the undisciplined light dwells. That's whenever you look at a movie like use a movie like Legion. You remember when all the angels came down and they were destroying everything and shit? You're like, I thought angels were supposed to be nice, and no. They do everything based on justice. You keep shining all this light around yourself, and the only thing something can be brought into the light is if you made it, if it's been justified. Whether it's dysfunction or chaos, that's on you. Did you justify dysfunction or did you just justify chaos? If you justify chaos, then you're justifying the process of order. If you justify dysfunction, then you're denying the sense of needing order. Mm-hmm. We always think we gotta fight everything. Why am I fighting this? If this is the thing, if this shit is actually aspects of myself, why am I fighting myself? As long as you feel like, as you just said it, as long as I felt the need that I had to fight everything and I gotta buck the system and I gotta do all of these things, the old imprint, that's the civil rights movement. That's habit of fucking movements that were always inverted and in reverse. That's why when you look at, use for an example, I haven't seen Quantumania with Ant-Man, you're supposed to be Kang, not Ant-Man. You're supposed to be Thanos. You're supposed to be Thanos, not the Avengers. You're supposed to be the nigga against it. You're supposed to be becoming Venom and understanding your shadow and integrating with your shadow in a certain way. Not trying to I'm gonna use it for my own personal shit, or on the other end of that shit, you sitting there like, I'm gonna do it. No. But as long as you sitting inside of that space and not dealing with those internal conflicts, that's what creates your environment. That's the energetics of it. Everything that you get triggered by is letting you know that you are not been emotionally present. That's where effort don't count. Effort don't count. I tried this and I tried that. Effort don't count. So when you walk away from it, let me process this. I did all of these things and it wasn't good enough. But what was I really doing these things for? What were these aspects being adhered to? That's that process. But before we slide out of here, I'm going to pull, I told to pull 3 cards in my mind. Being told to pull these 3 little cards real quick. We gonna pull 3. Glamour, decisions, and judgment. If you looked at last week's video, yep, we still in that same, this is how you know this is aspects of that same series. We're in this series we're getting into these next couple of weeks. These are leading up to the first class that's going to be launched in, I might end up launching it in maybe June, July, maybe, or some of that nature. Just depends on whenever it hits me in that space. But when you're looking inside of these spaces with yourself, you got to ask yourself real fucking questions. Like, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid is going to be exposed? 7 of Swords represents that opening up of that heart space. What are you afraid that's going to be exposed? One of the questions to go with yourself into the day, next couple of days, is what are you afraid is going to be exposed? You already can, if you sit with the thought of the worst thing that can happen is what's the worst thing that can happen? You got to start over in some way. You got to deal with it regardless. Either you're going to deal with it on one end in detriment, or you're going to deal with it in the state of exalting. Exalting don't mean it's going to be good, and detriment don't mean it's going to be bad. If you come to me for a human design chart, you can read some of your exalting, like you read some of your detriments. Some of your detriments are better than some of your some of the things that you exalt into and breaking away from a certain space. So you're allowing all of this right here to keep piercing at this heart, but it's not piercing at your heart. As you can see, it's not piercing at your heart. If you look at that card, it's not piercing at the heart. It's laying behind the heart, which means this is a form of the aspects of that surgery. That goes into the aspects of that 3 of Cups. When I see the 3 of Cups, I'm always led to the aspects of that 3 card, the 3 card Monty, or the 3 cups and the ball under it. You keep trying to trick yourself and pay attention to what you keep putting in what cup, and then you move it around, and you're like, yay, you keep playing this mediocre game with yourself. That means you put yourself under a new identity, move it around, and you excited at the effort that you were able to remember it. Here's the thing about you, remember, until it is implanted when it's implanted into the subconscious, it's forgotten. It goes into the hidden space. It goes into the darkness. If you still can remember it, that intention, that affirmation, that point, if you still can remember that intention or what you thought you wanted, that means it's regarded as you didn't cast it into the darkness, you casted it into your shadow. So that leads back to that original heart space. That's what you're afraid is going to be exposed. You're afraid that this right here, what you've been trying to hide around in these, what you've been trying to move around and keep away from everybody is about to be exposed. But that's necessary. If you don't keep doing that, it's going to keep making this accessory, because you keep trying to accessorize using 2 of these. You keep trying to bury shit away under 1, and then you trying to So you ignore this one, and then you try to slip into these two. This is where your heart was at. This is where your heart actually is. This is where you want your heart to be. Your heart is full as fuck. You got all that shit on your fucking heart. You're afraid for that shit to actually pierce and actually come out. You're trying to get to this point to where this shit right here, where your heart now becomes empty. That space becomes empty. That space becomes open. Because that's the only way you can actually lift up and tap into more shit to refill this cup. As long as this shit's full, romanticism. As long as this shit's full, it won't allow it to pass. I've been told to pull two more. Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords represents you keep trying to move in haste. Since you keep trying to, this is what you do. I'm gonna take these cards to illustrate the energy. This is what you do. You move everything around to hide. You try to hide this aspect of what needs to be cut away, what needs to fall away. You try to hide that shit. So you're trying to hide it all the time and try to play this game. And then whenever you get that context of that feeling, like where it's full, that heart attack feeling, your heart start feeling heavy. Your heart chakra start getting heavy. All that, your heart chakra start feeling heavy. And you start feeling some shit, you automatically want to start moving again. So everything you said you were going to cut away, you don't cut away. You only cut away, you're only cutting shit away long enough. You only cutting shit away long enough to romanticize, celebrate. You keep celebrating the same game you playing with yourself. You keep celebrating the same game. I'm going to pull one more card. It's time to sit. Four of Swords represents sitting and opening up. It's time to allow that wound. It's time to allow those wounds to start opening. You sitting inside of that space and you're running around trying to find different bits of information just to come to one space and hope that space helps you unlock it. So that space actually unlocks it. That's never been how this shit works. That's never been how this shit works. Ever. As long as you trying to run around, because this is what you do. You have multiple spaces. It's harder to focus when you have multiple mirrors out on the space. It's harder to focus when you have multiple mirrors instead of focusing on the first mirror. Remember what I said earlier on in this aspect? You ain't even got your own altar to yourself, so you don't even know how to build that type of space. You haven't been focusing on you. You built this fetishism or fetishization or this fetish type life. You've been creating this fetish of what you were supposed to be. And now, whether it be the example of the child is now older, the child is about to graduate, or the relationship, like you got, like, use an example, like people were together just as long as the kids were there. We doing it for the kids. You still doing that same shit your parents did. We were doing it for the kids. You still, in some way, you living that shit out now. So now you come to a point to where it's focused on you and you don't like what you've become in relation to you not dealing with yourself. But you got a choice. You got a choice. Either you're going to continue or you're going to get this work. You're going to continue or you're going to get this work. You can continue doing what the fuck you think that you going to do and keep taking it on to another day. I can tell you from experience, the shit don't fucking work. I have no reason to lie to you. Shit ain't going to work. All you going to do is be like, man, goddamn, my life's supposed to be better than this. I should have been here. You keep saying that shit all fucking day. You keep saying that shit all fucking day. All they're going to do is keep you running around looking at them, trying to create more mirrors. If I look like this, then I can go back to that space. If I look like this, then I can go do this. That ain't how it works. That ain't how that shit work. I'm coming from the full transparency from my space. Ever since, I'm talking about, if you go back and look at earlier videos from 2006, like from 2018 when I first started going with everything, I was talking about 2012 all the way up, just to get to the space that I'm at now. I had to separate myself from certain outcomes, from those outcomes, because I would look for, I talked about this last week, I was looking for certain elements to happen. You got to keep going even if you don't see that aspect of the physical change. Because you got to remember, everything you're doing now sets the tone for what's about to come, what comes next. That means what you do today, that shit may not even plant or take root until 4.5 fucking months from now. Real shit, it might not take root till 4.5 months from now. But that doesn't make it any less applied. That doesn't make it any less applied. It's one of the hardest things that we go through in this healing process. It's one of the hardest things we go through in the shadow work process. We go through in the spiritual process. It's actually building. Because up until this point, we've had nobody that's actually telling us, we've had nothing to give us the aspects of the building aspect. We got the pageantry of, this shit is over. Yes, this shit is over. The old way that you're doing shit is over. But if you have not done the work, guess what you're going to be taking with you to the next page? The same bullshit. And now you're at a point to where that shadow is so fucking dense. That shadow is so fucking thick. That shadow is so fucking dense and so fucking thick that you can't outrun, you can't move. Now when you're moving, you can't see it because you're in it. You can't see it because you're in it. You can't smell the shit because you've been living in the shit the entire fucking time. But I desire you to be the fucking best. The links above the video, the links are pinned in the links are pinned in here. The links are pinned in the aspects for sessions, setting up sessions with me, services. You can hit me in my inbox, hit me in the inbox to check availability. Yeah, hit me in my inbox to check availability. And then also hit the website to look at availability if you have more questions. This has been another Papa Monday elevation. We don't keep getting deep into this we don't keep building into this. I desire you to be the fucking best. Wholeheartedly desire you to be the fucking best. But your dedication must be higher than your fear of what you're going to lose in the sense of survival. What you've been surviving off of. Your dedication must be higher than your detriments of your survival. I love you. We love us. Ashe.